Europe is a dream destination for motorcycle riders, but it's not as simple as just showing up and hitting the road. From navigating strict speed limits and toll systems to mastering tight Alpine hairpins, there's a lot to know before you go. In this video, I'll share tips and tricks I've learned from years of riding Europe's most iconic roads so you can focus on the adventure and avoid the headaches. Let's dive in. What's up, my biker friend? My name is Oliver and today we're covering what every rider must know before touring in Europe. If you're planning a motorcycle tour through Europe's legendary roads, this video is essential viewing. What you learn today could save you money, reduce stress and help you avoid legal headaches abroad. From the Alpine passes of Switzerland, Italy and France, to Norway's fjord landscapes, Sardinia coastal road and the rugged beauty of the West Balkans, Europe offers some of the world's most thrilling rides. But it's not without challenges, strict speed enforcements, complex toll systems and mountain roads that demand respect. By the way, these are all regions I offer guided motorcycle tours to. Please check out the link in the description for more details and dates if you're interested. Having ridden these regions for years, I've learned lessons the hard way, like a close call with the Swiss traffic law that taught me to be vigilant about speed limits and police checks in Switzerland. In this guide, we'll cover critical tips, avoiding fines, navigating tolls, preparing for technical mountain roads, and where you can safely unleash your bike's power. So let's get started. Yes, there are places in Europe where it's legal to go as fast as you dare, and they're all in Germany on the Autobahn. If you want to experience no speed limits, absolutely go for it. Contrary to what some might think, most Germans aren't crazy speed demons on the Autobahn. In good traffic, the average speed of cars is around 160 km an hour, which is about 100 miles per hour, which isn't much faster than the speed limits of neighboring countries. This is despite the fact that most modern cars and motorcycles can easily exceed 200 km an hour. However, Germany is a densely populated country, so heavy traffic often dictates slower speeds, even in unlimited sections. On a motorcycle, you'll notice that speeds over 150 km an hour, factors like panniers, wind protection from your windshield and declosing start to really affect the high-speed stability. With a light luggage setup and good road tires, cruising around 200 km an hour is definitely possible, but with large panniers and off-road tires, that speed limit drops to around 150 km an hour. For example, when I was heading to Denmark to catch my ferry to Iceland, I had the Lone Rider motorbags with a full camping setup, and 150 km an hour was just fast enough for me. Outside of Germany, most European countries have speed limits between 120 to 130 km an hour on motorways. On country roads, the speed limit is typically between 80 and 100 km an hour, and within city limits, it's 40 to 50 km an hour. At most border crossings, you'll see large signs displaying the general speed limits for that country. Unless specific speed limits are posted for the road you're on, the general limits apply. In some parts of Europe, motorcycle traffic is restricted or limited. This is usually due to noise complaints in populated areas or high accident rates. Authorities may restrict motorcycle traffic to certain times of the day or week, or even limit it based on noise levels, as it's the case in Austria. While I have my opinions on these measures, there's something we have to deal with in certain areas. That said, I try to be a good ambassador for the motorcycle community by sticking to the speed limits in populated areas and keeping the noise level down by running my bike in a higher gear. Outside city limits, especially in the mountains, speed is usually limited by the difficulty of the terrain. On straight sections, higher speed than the posted limits are possible, but I try not to exceed 20 km over the speed limit when road conditions allow it. I'm not condoning breaking the speed limit, but as most riders know, it's easy to get up to speed quickly on a motorcycle. In remote areas, away from major tourist hotspots, this usually isn't a big issue, and fines tend to be moderate if you get caught. However, there are two countries where you need to be especially cautious: Switzerland and Norway. Both have very high fines, even for small speed limit violations. In Switzerland, police frequently patrol popular mountain passes and conduct routine checks. For example, I had a run-in with the Swiss police on the Umbria Pass. I was strictly keeping to the speed limit, but I was pulled over for a routine check. I was friendly, I took off my helmet, I smiled, I made small talk with the officers. Even though there was no issue with my driving or my motorcycle, I had forgotten to turn off my radar warning app on my phone, which doesn't even work in Switzerland. They told me this could have cost me 600 Swiss francs, so that's about 600 euros, as it's illegal there, but luckily they were kind enough and let me off with a warning. Norway is similar, with high fines and traffic cameras on main roads. However, these cameras are usually not in the scenic remote roads motorcyclists prefer. On my last trip to Norway, covering about 6,500 kilometers, I only encountered one radar speed control near the North Cape. Fortunately, I was already within the speed limit, but I appreciated the warning coming from oncoming riders. Typical speed limits both in Switzerland and Norway are 80 km an hour on country roads, which is slower than in the neighboring countries where the speed limits often go up to 100 km an hour. So in those countries, it's best to be patient and just enjoy the stunning scenery around you. Over the past 200,000 kilometers of riding in Europe, I've received a handful of speeding tickets. They were moderate, and considering the distance I traveled, I think that's pretty good. How about you? Have you had any experience with speed limits or fines while riding in Europe? Share your story in the comments, I'd love to hear them, and we can all learn from each other. Depending on where you're from, roads in Europe might feel smaller and narrower than what you're used to, especially in the mountains where tight hairpin turns are the norm. Let's start with the Alps. This is where you'll find some of the most challenging terrain in Europe. The narrow roads, steep inclines and sharp descents on mountain passes can really test your skills. And it's not just one or two tough sections on the tour through the Alps, you'll encounter these roads back to back, which means you'll need stamina to handle a full day of riding. Sardinia, on the other hand, is a little different. It doesn't have the same steep climbs and descents as the Alps, but it's packed with curvy roads. For many riders, it's an absolute dream, but here's the thing: after covering 300 kilometers of twisty roads, maintaining focus and concentration can become a real challenge. Now Norway. While it does have a few narrow demanding roads like the famous Trollstigen with its tight hairpins and steep inclines, or the Lysevegen road, most of Norway's roads are actually quite manageable, even for newer riders. So while there are a few exceptions, Norway is generally more about enjoying the scenery than tackling extreme terrain. When it comes to struggling with challenging roads, I see usually two main issues that riders face. The first is tight hairpin turns. Take the Stelvio Pass for example. It's famous for its switchbacks, but it's also infamous for riders dropping the bikes mid-turn. Even if you don't drop your bike, you'll often see riders taking a wide line through a corner, which can put them into oncoming traffic lanes. That's something you really want to avoid. The second issue is passing traffic. In popular areas like the Alps, you often run into slow-moving vehicles like large RVs, dragging a line of cars behind them. Passing these can be tricky because of the time window to overtake is usually pretty short. Even passing a single vehicle can feel challenging on a narrow winding road. But don't worry, if you're feeling nervous about road conditions like these, there are definitely ways to prepare yourself. If you have access to rider training events, I highly recommend them. Over the past decades, I've done countless professionally led training sessions, and they not only improved my riding skills but have also been a lot of fun, especially when I've done them with friends. Despite all my experience, I still make it a point to attend a basic one-day riders training at the start of every season with my local automotive club. These sessions are great for polishing up the basics, and many of the drills directly help with tackling Europe's demanding roads. One of my favorite parts of these sessions is practicing on a go-kart track. The tight corners on those tracks are perfect for preparing for the hairpins you'll encounter in the Alps. If you want to take it a step further, you could look into a dedicated cornering training course. These are great because they cover both slow, tight cornering and faster flowing curves, just like the ones you'll find in Sardinia. Now, if you don't have access to formal training, don't worry, you can still practice on your own. Find a parking lot and work on your figure 8 turns and U-turns from a standstill. Do lots of them, repetition is key, and it'll really boost your confidence. As for passing traffic, that's a bit harder to train for because it's a mix of anticipating traffic, choosing the right moment, and having good control of clutch, brake and throttle. The best way to improve is to simply practice. Start with an easy pass, like overtaking a single vehicle on a straight road, and then gradually work your way up to more challenging situations, like passing multiple vehicles or overtaking on tighter roads. The key to conquering Europe's most challenging roads is preparation and practice. Once you've built up your confidence, these roads go from intimidating to absolutely exhilarating. Let's talk about some of the rules, tolls and quirks you encounter while riding in Europe. These are the kind of things that can catch you off guard if you're not prepared, so it's worth taking a few minutes to get familiar with them before your trip. First up, toll roads. The toll system varies a lot depending on the country you're traveling through. For example, in Norway, motorcycles are usually exempt from tolls, which is great. But in countries like Austria, Switzerland, Italy and France, you need to pay tolls, especially if you're using the faster motorways. In Austria and Switzerland, you need to buy a toll sticker for your bike. These are easy to find and can be purchased at most gas stations. In France, Italy and some Balkan countries, tolls are paid at stations where you charge based on the distance you've traveled. Now here's an odd situation to watch out for, the Brenner Pass. This is one of the most popular routes across the Alps and it's a bit of a toll trap. If you're coming from the Austrian Autobahn, you'll need an Austrian toll sticker. But even with that, you still have to pay separately to cross the Brenner Pass. Then, once you're in Italy, you start paying Italian tolls. Some riders forget to pay the toll at the Brenner Pass thinking that the Austrian or Italian toll covers it, and they're surprised later when they get fined for skipping the payment. So double check what's required at each stage of your route. Now let's talk about the legal essentials you need to carry with you. Make sure you have your license, an international driver's license, your insurance documents and your vehicle registration. These are non-negotiable as police and border control will ask for them. Some countries also have additional requirements. For example, in Austria, you're required to carry a reflective vest and a first aid kit on your bike. These seem like small details, but forgetting them can lead to fines or even being turned away at a border. So it's worth checking the specific requirements for each country you'll be riding through. When it comes to passing other vehicles, most traffic rules in Europe are similar to what you're probably used to. On larger motorways, passing slow traffic is only allowed on the left side, unless you're in heavier stop-and-go traffic. Slower vehicles are required to stay in the right or middle lane. Even if you're tempted to pass on the right, I strongly recommend sticking to this rule for your own safety. Other drivers won't expect you to pass on the right and it can lead to dangerous situations. Plus, avoiding fines for traffic violations is always a good idea. Lane splitting is a hot topic in the motorcycle community and the rules around it vary widely across Europe. In some countries it's legal, in others it's not. And in some places it's a bit of a grey area. For example, as of January 2025, lane splitting is officially legal in France. There are conditions of course, like staying between the left lane and the middle or right lane, but in Germany lane splitting is highly illegal. That said, you still see riders filtering through traffic, especially on hot days when there's a traffic jam. Here's an important tip for Germany. In a traffic jam, cars in the left lane will move all the way to the left and cars in the middle lane will move all the way to the right to create the rescue lane for emergency vehicles. Now, even though it's very tempting, this lane is strictly off limits for motorcycle and blocking it can result in hefty fines. If you need to filter through traffic in Germany, I recommend using the shoulder of the Autobahn. It's safer and the fines are much lower than if you were caught using the rescue lane. And yes, in case you're wondering, that's what I tend to do. Then there's Italy, where lane splitting is neither officially allowed nor forbidden, but is culturally accepted. As soon as you start riding in Italy, especially in cities, you'll see scooters and motorcycles weaving through traffic everywhere. It's not just on the motorways, it's in the cities too. So when in Rome, do as the Romans do, if you dare. If you're planning to rent a bike for your trip, here's a tip: book early. If you're traveling during peak summer months, it's best to secure your rental in the winter or spring. Popular bikes and rental shops fill up quickly, especially in the high demand areas like the Alps or the coastal regions. When renting, make sure to check what's included in the rental package. Some companies provide panniers, GPS units, or insurances as part of the deal, while others charge extra. With that said, if you're booking a guided motorcycle tour with me and you're renting a motorcycle from Stefan's rental company, all these extras are not only included, but his bikes are always in the very best condition and no older than 1 or 2 years. Also, you can rent a full riding suit, boots, helmet and even an airbag vest along with his motorcycles. There you have it. Europe's roads are truly unforgettable, but preparation is everything. Respect the speed zones, get ready for those tight turns, and don't forget to pack all your paperwork. If you're looking for the best routes to ride these regions, be sure to check out this video where I've highlighted some of the most stunning and exciting regions in Europe you don't want to miss.